Republicans and the administration should be honest about what is happening here. Abject abandonment of the statutory duties and the congressional authority. This resolution of inquiry is simply asking the administration to explain how they will faithfully carry out the laws that are mandated by Congress. I believe that to claim our education system will be improved or even preserved after the actions of this administration is delusional at best and lying to the American people at worst.
I mean, just imagine what this looks like in practice. If you are not allowed to say that the child is using a different name or a different gender identity, so you're using one name and one set of pronouns with the child in class, and their parents come in and suddenly you have to switch, you're using a different name and a different set of pronouns. This is absolute madness. So because of the prevalence of this across our state, a number of responsible districts came forward and said, we're not going to do this. We're going to put protections for students and their families into our district policy.
Hold on for a second. How did America reach a point where parents asking questions about their own children in school suddenly became controversial? At first, this hearing looked like a standard political clash. But the moment Kevin Kiley shifted the conversation toward parental rights and transparency inside schools, the entire debate changed. Democrats framed the issue around civil rights and student protections, while Kiley focused on trust between schools and families. And that is what made this exchange resonate far beyond Congress. Because for many Americans, this is no longer just about politics. It is about who gets informed, who makes decisions, and where the line between privacy and parental responsibility should actually be.
Office of Civil Rights, yet claim that they can still carry out their legal obligation to protect the students from discrimination. They fired the entire legal team that provided guidance to states on how to implement IDEA, and yet claim that they will still be able to provide equal opportunity to kids with disability. Republicans and the administration should be honest about what is happening here. Abject abandonment of the statutory duties and the congressional authority. This resolution of inquiry is simply asking the administration to explain how they will faithfully carry out the laws that are mandated by Congress. I believe that to claim our education system will be improved or even preserved after the actions of this administration is delusional at best and lying to the American people at worst.
So let's just look at what's happened in my state of California. You have many, many districts, many documented cases of a school that has actively encouraged a child to identify with a new gender. And they did this without the parents' knowledge, without the parents' consent, and then they lied to the parents about it. We have many documented cases of a parent confronting the school and the school or personnel lying about it and even fabricating and doctoring documents, changing the child's name on assignments that were handed in. I mean, just imagine what this looks like in practice. If you are not allowed to say that the child is using a different name or a different gender identity, so you're using one name and one set of pronouns with the child in class, and their parents come in and suddenly you have to switch, you're using a different name and a different set of pronouns. This is absolute madness. So because of the prevalence of this across our state, a number of responsible districts came forward and said, we're not going to do this. We're going to put protections for students and their families into our district policy and say that this is something that parents have the right to know about. So how does the state respond? The Attorney General with the backing of the governor, they immediately start suing these districts. They start filing lawsuits trying to get binding legal judgments that will force these districts to lie to parents. And then on top of that, the supermajority legislature passes a bill and the governor signs it that as a matter of state law says that we are not going to allow districts to tell parents the truth. Now, thankfully, many of those lawsuits are being rejected by the courts, and the Trump administration has now launched an investigation challenging that new state law for violating the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. And finally, I want to address this idea that there's somehow a contradiction between this bill and the commitment our committee has to local control in education. That is absolutely not the case. We support local control in education because we believe that curriculum and school offerings and the different options available to parents should reflect the values of the community, that there should be direct input from the community and local elected officials, and a whole host of other reasons, such as allowing for innovation and the fact that the schools generally are not run best from Washington, D.C. But that doesn't mean that we can't have civil rights laws. We have civil rights laws in this country that provide a basic level of protection for the dignity of each person, and there are particular civil rights laws that are attendant to an educational context, including protections against discrimination on the basis of sex, and including FERPA, the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So we will continue to actively promote local control in education. I think we're going to see enormous progress in that respect from this committee, from the new administration, and it will have great benefits across the country. But we will not permit federal education dollars to be used to create a dangerous wall of separation between kids and their parents.
What made this hearing stand out was not simply that Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley challenged Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. It was the way both sides framed the issue in completely different terms. Instead of focusing mainly on political language, Kiley centered his argument around trust between schools and parents. He pointed to reports from school districts in California, where parents allegedly were not informed about gender identity discussions involving their children, arguing that schools should never withhold major information from families. Omar and Democrats, meanwhile, focused on civil rights protections, student safety, and concerns about discrimination. Omar argued that weakening federal education oversight or reducing civil rights enforcement could harm vulnerable students, including students with disabilities and LGBTQ students. From that perspective, some privacy protections are viewed as necessary safeguards for students who may not feel safe in every home environment. And this is where the debate became far more complicated than a normal partisan exchange. Republicans framed the issue around transparency, parental rights, and institutional accountability. Democrats framed it around student protection, inclusion, and civil rights enforcement. Both sides were ultimately arguing over the same fundamental question: what responsibilities do schools have to students, and where should parental authority begin or end? The discussion became even more politically charged once the hearing moved into women's sports. Kiley and Republicans argued that biological differences matter in athletics, and that many Americans see the issue primarily through the lens of fairness and competitive balance. Democrats generally responded by emphasizing inclusion and protections for transgender students, arguing schools should ensure dignity and equal treatment for all students. What made this resonate beyond Congress is that it connected to frustrations many parents already had after COVID declining test scores, prolonged school closures, concerns about academic priorities, and a growing distrust toward institutions. For many viewers, the hearing stopped feeling like an abstract policy debate and started feeling like a larger cultural argument about honesty, authority, and whether schools are still aligned with the expectations of ordinary families. And at a broader policy level, this is why the issue continues growing nationally. Schools are being asked to balance two competing concerns at the same time: protecting vulnerable students while also maintaining transparency and trust with parents. The challenge is that once either side feels ignored, the debate escalates very quickly, and that is exactly why hearings like this are now drawing national attention far beyond Washington.